beautiful people, and welcome back to another rendition of the About That podcast with me, your host, your favorite geek psychologist, your favorite pop culture enthusiast, your favorite queen of the nerds, Dr. Vanessa Hintz. And I am practically brimming with joy and excitement to bring to you all the epic conclusion of my conversation with Mr. Victor Dandridge Jr., the hardest working man in comics, as we wrap up our conversation and exploration of the pervading themes of the recent film Wakanda Forever. Now, this last part of our conversation features not only our overall appraisals of the film, but also an in-depth discussion about colonization and the role of the colonizers in the Black Panther narrative and in the development of different characters, specifically Namor. And so I am so thrilled to be able to bring this to you all. And so, without further ado, please enjoy this conversation. And so what I want to bring us to now is, again, something that was new to this film. And you know that I be thirsting after the man. I'm going to try very hard not to objectify, because I appreciate the holistic portrayal. Okay. So I'm going to look at you. I'm also going to listen to you.
That's right.
I was thirsting after Namor. Okay. I was thirsting. It was partly because he didn't have no shirt on the whole time.
They set
me up. They set me up for failure. And I think I don't want to call it an origin story, but his backstory, I mean, it's like Killmonger, and then he's like 1 centimeter below or above whatever. Like it was one of those where, I mean, he ain't lying. You know what I'm saying? And one thing I want to, thinking about it now, I get like very amped. But one thing I want to bring up about sort of Namor's, I guess, worldview, his quest, if you will, is that it was rooted in the sort of long-term effects of what we call colonization. Now, I'm sure people have heard that term. And when we talk about colonizing in this sense, it's essentially where a group that perceives themselves as dominant or superior subjugates a group that is indigenous to a certain land. So we saw that with Namor's people. The Spaniards came and they were like, I want this. And they subjugated and enslaved those people, just like we saw with Africans. We saw Europeans go to Africa and say, y'all, no, we're going to go. You know what I'm saying? And there's this idea that we can do that because we're important. We can do that because we're superior. And I think what we don't often think or talk about with regard to colonization is how, again, that has generational effects. So the U.S. has become a world superpower because of what they stole. European superpowers became that way because of what they sold, because they subjugated. And so how that sort of influences people over time, Namor came with it because, I mean, he was there the whole time. So that's like a sort of different, but his fury is rooted in this long-standing oppression, colonization, very akin to another that I lusted after, and that would be Killmonger.
Yes,
and
indeed.
So tell me about how you felt about Namor, because again, Namor, he also been in these streets. He has a history in the comics for people who are not familiar, but tell me about his introduction, and then thinking about the legacy that the Black Panther has in the MCU of these sympathetic, for lack of a better word, villains. Tell me about how you experienced Namor.
So Namor has always been a very interesting character to me. Literally one of the first characters ever to be created under the imprint that would be Marvel Comics. Namor actually predates Captain America. Like,
with the history facts?
Yeah, like 1939, right? Namor. Captain America doesn't come out until 1941, okay? So literally in the first instances when Marvel Comics was the name of the book, not the imprint, Okay, that's Namor coming from the Atlantic, waging war against the surface for transgressions. Ideally speaking, when he's talking about it, he's talking about fishing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we could look at it and go, he's talking about environmental issues, us dumping trash, oil, any sort of
Mm-hmm.
chemicals in water. They got a beef, okay? You're wrecking my
Mm-hmm.
home. And by
Mm-hmm.
wrecking my home, it's only right that I come wreck yours. Namor was always positioned initially as somewhat of a villain, attacking the modern surface world in his rage over our everyday living structure that he felt threatened by,
Mm-hmm.
was then encountered by the Human Torch, not the Fantastic Four's Human Torch, but a android created by Dr. Horton, who was this living embodiment of the two elements fighting. You had water
Mm-hmm.
versus fire. It's classic, right?
Ooh,
Um,
I'm like drawing a map of all these things that you're saying. It's like The Young and the Restless. Okay, keep going.
like, oh snap, this one. So that's like Namor was always considered somewhat of a villainous character, but that changed with the advent and exploration of World War II in comics,
Mm-hmm.
where Namor then became a part of the Invaders. So you now have him alongside this Human Torch, fighting with Captain America and Bucky to fight Nazis, because even as Namor is so very against the surface world, he's like, Nazis are worse. Okay. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like y'all, but Nazis are way worse. And we need to
Mm-hmm.
fight them with all of our being.
Mm-hmm.
So he's always had almost an anti-hero vibe to him.
Mm-hmm.
What's really interesting is that this movie dances just a little bit of a potential romance between Namor and Shuri. It's
Mm-hmm.
in there. They don't really go
Mm-hmm.
there, but it's, you could see it. If that was where they went, you go, okay, I see how you got there.
I saw it. Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
However, in comics, Namor is King Mr. Steal Your Girl. Okay.
He is. He is. I love it.
Specifically against Reed Richards, Namor is
Yes.
constantly shooting his shot with Sue. Um,
Messy.
I mean, and he's good for it too. Like, he don't appreciate you like he's supposed to. He's always in his lab. He ain't in you. Like, he says stuff like he does that. And like you said, he's walking around with a Speedo, winged feet, and that's it.
Ain't got no kind of shirt on.
He's like, look at how I'm chiseled by the sea. You know what I'm saying? Like, like how you like my backstroke? You like my back? Like, that's him. Like, that's his vibe. And what's interesting is the way that plays out in his characterization. He walks around with a sense of entitlement because he's king. He is king of a vast nation that in so many different ways is unparalleled by any other singular force on earth. There's not as many people in the kingdom or like, he has more people in his kingdom, species of people in his kingdom, than there are people on earth. Like, there's a level of power and responsibility that he was raised with that kind of showcases why are you this way? Well, here's why, right? The most interesting part in his portrayal in this movie is that he is a product of colonization, where Wakanda as a whole, and by proxy Black Panther, is a product of non-colonization. He is a product of, right? So it is because of the exposure to smallpox that colonizers brought to his people that they were even instructed by their god to find their version of the heart-shaped herb, or vibranium infused whatever, that would change their people forever, right? Like, it's in the face and the acts of colonization that they exist, much in the same way of Killmonger. Killmonger, backstory for those people that don't know, the whole plot that Killmonger's father, in Jobu, is hatching when we first get introduced to him in Zuri. They're hatching a plot to break Killmonger's mom out of prison because she was an activist, and that was the whole idea, is that she got locked up, and they were wanting to break her out of prison. These are people that are rooted in the sense of colonization's aftermath, right? Like, that's what they exist from. So it paints the picture of their response in so many different ways. The thing that makes it so very fascinating is we understand that as African Americans, Black folks in America, we're still under the thumb of colonization's efforts, right? We're still under it. Namor is not. He experienced it. It wrecked their lifestyle. They adapted, moved away from it, and then found a way to flourish, right? Absent of any other interaction with anyone else. Unless they absolutely wanted to, they didn't have to interact with people. And, you know, the first time that they do kind of come back and interact with people, when his mother dies, he sees, again, the context of colonization that destroyed his people and is like, no, I'm not letting this slide. I don't have to. Like, in the decades since you guys did this to my people, I have this power and ability, and we have these powers and abilities. We're not going to let you do it. We don't have to. We're going to free these people from you. Boom. You know, as watching it earlier today, my lovely wife brought up how there's a misconception that's very interesting, because they already established that Namor ages slower than other people. When they see him appear and he looks as a child, he's like 40 years old. Like, he has lived on Earth for decades. So it's not with the understanding of a child that he's approaching this situation. He's a grown man. He might have been older than I am now. You know what I'm saying? And like, this will not stand. I refuse to let this happen. And I'll murder you with my own hands to make sure that this does not happen again. I've seen what you can do. My people are blue because of you. Nah, not even. You know what I mean? So in the sense of the effect of colonization to their story, it's so intrinsic. And again, the thing about it that's so interesting is that Namor moved beyond the colonization, but still has an understanding of its potential. That's why they're on guard for the other people to find vibranium. They know the value of what they've gotten. And if the other people get it, that's a problem. You know, it almost begs the question of, when did they find out about Wakanda? Did they know for a long time that Wakanda existed? Or was it not until T'Challa revealed Wakanda to everyone else that they go, oh shit, there's a whole other place that's like us.
Yes.
You know, because at no point does he reference in his long history, I know your people. I've seen your people before. No, he never says that. So the idea is that they now understand the threat of colonization that is now invoked with this showcase and reveal that vibranium is out here, and it's this powerful substance, and with it you can change the world. You can become powerful. You can become more powerful than other people. Wakandans knew it. I think the Talakans knew it, and they were afraid of what would happen if colonizing cultures find out about it. And that's the whole point. That is the key, like, source of the story, is this political drama between two similar cultures that are now needing to judge a third. And this third culture is overtly violent, definitely has a history of these bad acts. And there's nothing that you're showing us, even in this modern context, that you are not going to do that same thing. Because we literally start the movie off with soldiers from France trying to...
Yes.
You know
And Queen Ramonda said that in again, her UN read, we are not afraid of what vibranium can do. We are afraid of you. Because you have shown us that you be on that bullshit. And
consistently.
I love what you said about colonization being intrinsic to the story when you think about Namor and Killmonger. Because what you're describing too, where was Killmonger going to go on Earth where he wasn't oppressed? Right. And he said that in his throne room monologue. You know what I'm saying? And that's why a lot of people were like, I mean, he ain't lying though.
I'm looking for the lie, and
he's not lying.
Whoa.
And I remember right after I saw it the first time, you remember I texted you and I was like, part of my issue, you know, being someone who works in the space of equity and inclusion and just, you know, doing what I do. And I was so hurt that the Black and brown people were fighting, like in throughout the film. We see the Americans, like, they just showing their ass all the time, but they just over here watching everybody else fight. Like, do you remember the scene where Talokan was attacking that submarine or whatever it was, that ship, and the first thing the lady said was, it's the Wakandans. It has to be. It's like, girl, what?
It's gotta be them.
You know what I'm saying? And I remember, I feel, this is a hill that I will go on and shout from. My hope for this story moving forward is that we don't continue to see Black and brown people fighting each other. What you just described absolutely makes sense, that this is why this happened. And I hope, for the sake of societal well-being as we move forward, that in the next film, whenever we see these folks again, particularly Namor, because he was still on that bullshit at the end. You heard what he said. He was like, I said this, and my hope is that that this story gets to a place where they understand what you just said. Like, the enemy is not you, the enemy is subjugation and colonization. So let's talk about the root of that, which is not necessarily people, it's a system. So how can we collectively pool our resources as two of the most powerful nations of ever, two of the most powerful groups of ever? How can we pool this so that we're not just fighting each other? And I think we kind of got there at the end, but it hurt. It hurt me.
I don't think we got there enough, right? Especially because, again, Namor is reciprocating the lesson of colonization that he was taught, right? The moves that he's doing is about this conquering ideal and the things that they've taken on to themselves. He even said, we got part of our tongue, the Spanish that we speak, is because of this colonized, effort, right? This move to kind of take over us. We actually did take some of that, and this is us as well. We are the byproduct of colonization. And even how we view our stuff, this is mine, and I'm willing to fight you to keep you from having it. That's a colonizer's mindset. There needs to be a story that breaks that. Something needs to happen where, in truth, Telecon needs something. And I think that's the story that will be required. They need help, and they have to ask for help. And I would love for that to come from Wakanda. That would be fantastic. But the way this story is kind of framed, I do think that there were moments that were edited out that could have led to such a thing, but we're not going to see it that way. I'm very curious as to what deleted scenes are on Disney Plus to show us. But I think that is the issue, is that you're dealing with two separate cultures from Wakanda and Telecon, because one was colonized and one was not. And so one, by proxy of exposure, exhibits or reflects back some of the colonization or colonizers' ideals, and one clearly is like, no, don't do that. And you're like, yo, but they will get this and they will don't do that. Again, looking at the poise of Queen Ramonda being able to say, I'll give you back your soldiers. Don't ever do this again. Okay. This is mercy. Don't do this. The Telecons, they didn't even know they existed and still went after them violently. They could never, because the spirit of colonization lives in them, unlike the Wakandans. So the Wakandans will have the unfortunate task of trying to figure out, how do I convince you that this ain't it? How do I show you that this ain't the way? I do think that we will eventually get a third player that will, in fact, force Telecon's hand, and it would be the king himself, Dr. Victor Von Doom. I think the inclusion of Doom in the equation would be something that would put Telecon at risk, and they would have to go to Wakanda and go, help us. We're messing up. We're now going, we're fighting colonizing energy with colonizing energy, and we're not quite prepared to go at it like that, because he's actually better than we thought he was. Show us the way. Show us the way. Yeah.
You heard it here first, people. You heard it here first. That's what we are looking forward to. Ooh, so this has been a whole movie right now, this whole conversation, and I feel it in my chest in a good way. I feel it in my chest. And so I would be delighted if you would join me for this segment where we really sort of, like I said, give our appraisal, our opinions. And again, I do it in the way that Stewie Griffin taught me, which is compliment sandwich style.
There you go.
So we are going to uplift Wakanda Forever and talk about that. So let's go with this top piece of bread in the compliment
Yes.
sandwich. Something that I absolutely loved about the film, and we sort of alluded to it at the very beginning, was that it allowed me a space to process my grief. I don't think that before this film, I ever processed the grief I felt over Chadwick Boseman's death, ever. I just repressed it very much so. And in the viewings that I had of this film, as we talked about, I was not permitted to do that. I think it also validated for me, as someone, I lost someone very close to me a few years back, and it was the first really significant loss in my life. And I still experience feelings that I don't know are right or whatever when I think about that loss. And I think that this film and the way that they portrayed Black women experiencing these emotions has been validating for me. So that is something that I absolutely loved.
I like that. I like that a lot. Speaking of a feeling in positivity, I appreciated the range that they allowed Black female success to be showcased. Again, as a girl dad, I need to be able to show that more, to my daughters, to show them your abilities to do these things are great, but they don't have to be so exclusive that you feel isolated. Here's greatness. Here are multiple facets of greatness. Here are other people being great, and you can be great too, as long as you aim to live up to that level of greatness. I definitely love that, because we're coming off of both of my daughters started at brand new schools this year, because at their previous schools they weren't adequately being challenged. They were showcasing a level of intelligence that wasn't being fed. Therefore, they weren't intended or expected to grow in that exposure. And so now in this new space of pursuing excellence, that was the thing that we really kind of saw this movie kind of showcase, is that it's okay to pursue excellence as young Black females. Like, do it, go for it, don't expect it, but go get it. That's what is definitely the top part of my sandwich.
So I don't like the word negative. So I always say areas for growth. Areas
solid.
Areas for growth, I would say. And for me, it was a bit difficult to think about. One thing I would say, the movie was really long. I do think that there were points, even when I was watching it at home, that we could have got this together. Like, it was very long. And at parts I almost felt like it's kind of dragging a little bit. And so I will say that it was long. I'm trying to think of something else that maybe I didn't necessarily care for. That's
I got
about
you.
it.
I got
That's
you. I
about
got you.
it. It was
Nothing wrong with
long.
that. Nothing wrong
It
with
was
that.
long.
My middle meat of growth that can be expounded upon, could do better, sprinkle a little Worcestershire on it, would be kind of the third act. That as a narratologist looking at story, there's certain things that I thought could have been done in a poetic closed circle, right? Where you bring something back around and this is how you solve it, and you go, oh, that's amazing, right? One of the key pieces is Shuri, at the time of leading them into the final battle, really had proven herself multiple times unfit to do this, and not enough people of stature. Like, she had her moment talking to M'Baku, she had her moment talking to Nakia, but at no point did they go, you're doing this wrong, and you know it. You're doing this wrong and you know it. That should have been the catalyst for, in some way, shape, or form, them forcing her to sit it out. You know what I mean? And it's only by way of her actual growth does she come up with a way to show up and help and save the day. But like, it's kind of like Into the Spider-Verse, where in all of the ways that they needed him, Miles wasn't ready. He wasn't ready, and to that regard, it wasn't until he heard what he needed to hear that he could show up for them once they're in the midst of the thing, and he's proving, hey, look, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and I'm now in the space that I can be the hero that you need me to be moving forward. So as a narratologist, as a writer, as a storyteller, I would have definitely wanted a moment where, as they're gearing up for war, M'Baku or somebody challenges her in the way that we know of who gets to be leader, and she loses. And they tell her, like, because you lost, you don't get to lead this. We will do this our way, and we were going to do this, and this. And for me, it would have been that after she loses, what she cheats to do is because obviously when you do challenge day, you have to take something to take away the black or the heart-shaped herb, so you don't get the Black Panther powers. She would have made another one and took it and got a different presentation, possibly from her mother, that tells her, you were doing this wrong and you shouldn't have done it this way. And that's when she shows up, and they're like, what? Like, she shows up when they need her, but she shows up and goes, I'm ready now. I'm ready, and so it ends this note of accomplishment on her part that is not just the ending piece that we see. There's steps to her growth, that I think is huge. So that's something I would have wanted. It might have been a little bit too long, which I understand, but I would have wanted that. But also, I think I would have cut time by the way that she beats Namor.
Yes,
while I don't subscribe to the notion that she couldn't fight him, it would not be the way that she would beat him. I think she would recognize, I can't physically fight you and beat you. You're stronger than me. You're more powerful than me. But the thing that I have that you don't seem to have is a grasp of technology and what that can do. And that's how she would have beat him. So instead of having a ship that dries him out, I'm gonna put this out there because it's not what happened. Okay. They didn't have me in a room. If they had me in a room, this is what would have happened. She would have fought him, realized that she can't win, and as a play on kind of surrendering, she would have offered him a bracelet, because he gave her a bracelet. She would have offered him a bracelet, and she would have claimed like it was a sovereignty bracelet or something like that. And when he put it on, it would have created a suit around him that started to dry him out.
What?
That's what I would have had happen. And so that in this regard, she goes, I'm not letting you out until you yield this fight.
Yes.
I'm not letting you out until you do this. This is peaceful. I'm not going to kill you, but you will not feel the grace of the water again until you agree to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a full head to toe suit. You will not feel the power of the water ever again until you agree to this.
Ryan Coogler, did you hear that? Just you heard that.
Black Panther 3. That's all I'm saying, baby. Just put me in a room.
We have young Black gifted creatives here. Just saying. That was beautiful.
So, yeah. Thank you.
Yes, and I agree they could have cut some other parts out so we could have added that in. But for me, sort of to put the bottom piece of bread on the sandwich, I would say what I appreciated, which is the same thing I appreciated from the first film, is the honor given to culture, period. I think for those of you who may be familiar with the comics, like Namor is from Atlantis in the comics, but I read that, DC already did Atlantis. Yes. We don't want to do that again. So they went that, like, Talokan is based on like a real civilization. It's not like something they just made up. And that care that they gave, the care that they gave to African cultures, I think there was a point in Wakanda Forever, I think maybe in Black Panther too, where they referred to African Americans as the lost tribe.
Yes.
It stabs you in the heart every time. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And I think that there is a reason that a lot of the creators and people who worked on this film look like the people in the film, and there is a different type of care that I feel like they have provided. And I think you were in Hall H in San Diego last year, and you told me about, like, you could feel it. You could palpably feel the love that they all had for this. And I think it comes out on screen. And as a person who does not necessarily exist and work in spaces where everybody look like me or whatever, it is nice to feel like I'm a part of it too. And I think that they, in the first film, in this film, they did that so beautifully that I feel like this was made for me, and it was, you know what I'm saying? And I think that there's something unparalleled about that.
I love it. I love it. My final piece of bread, I'm going to kind of mirror what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a cultural statement that's made via this movie to us as a people. And it is really in the idea of the true resiliency of Black folks. We can encounter obstacles and still do. There is not a bigger obstacle than the star of your franchise literally passing away, unable to star in the continuation of this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody else would have been like, I guess we just can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
We just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
We found a way. We found a way. As a people, with a story, a message, an opportunity, we didn't give it up, right? Mm-hmm. Ryan and company didn't go, well, it's too hard to do this without Chad. Mm-hmm. I had a story in mind. He had a story written. Mm-hmm. He could have just been like, I guess I can't do it. I'm not the one. And he stepped up and said, I'll find a way to tell this story. Mm-hmm. And not only will I find a way to tell this story, I will find a way to tell the story that commemorates and exemplifies who this man was, not just to me, but to all of the cast and the rest of the world. We will find a way to do it. Mm-hmm. Mind you, this is something that I want people to take with you. The idea behind this is, even if we lose our leaders, doesn't mean that we can't step up and carry the torch. Doesn't mean that we can't carry it, because that's literally what happened. This is still called Black Panther Wakanda Forever, okay? Mm-hmm. Losing Chad did not stop them from doing this. And that is one of the biggest messages possible. We all have that person that, if only they were here. Nope. You do it anyway. You find a way to do it. You buckle down, you do the work, knowing that it's going to be twice as much for half as far. Okay, so put 4 of y'all together and you'll get there twice as fast. Do the work, and we can literally do anything. There is not an obstacle that will hold us back as a people. There you go. There you go.
And we did it in a way that uplifted him and was a celebration of his life. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a, and again, I was
a way for another for another culture of people.
Yes. I was not.
Say, hey, why don't y'all come on in, come play with us?
I was not team recast Chadwick, because I was like, you know what I'm saying?
I get you.
And point blank period, mic drop. That was amazing. I hope you all felt as moved by this film, but also by this conversation. And so, Victor, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Pleasure. I knew this was going to be live, and it has been nothing less. Please let the people know where they can hear more from you, where they can check out your work. Let us know.
Definitely. Again, I'm a self-publishing comic creator through my imprint, Vantage In-House Productions. If you visit vantageinhouse.com, you can see all the wonderful works that I'm producing with some of the greatest talents in comics. I identify specifically as a writer, so I'm working with some phenomenal artists, bringing some stories to life. I also encourage people to explore their own creativity through my imprint, You Create Comics. That's the letter U, C-R-E, the number 8, comics.com. If you are interested in exploring creativity, or even just looking at it as a way to boost literacy for students, check us out. We've got projects, we've got programming, we've got supplies to help you kind of create your own universe and start telling your own stories. Representation, put it out there, okay? Don't wait for other people to do it. Do it yourself. We're all about, kind of empowering people to speak with their own voice. That's kind of that's the vibe. That's where we need to be. Okay. I'm going to say something inflammatory. I'm trying to make it so that Afrofuturism as a genre is unnecessary. That's what I'm going to say it. I want to make Afrofuturism as a genre unnecessary. So let's put out more stuff. Let's put out stuff so that we are just as ubiquitous as a figure in science fiction and fantasy and creativity, so that we don't have to specify things that feature us as though it is somehow other, because it ain't. It is.
Ooh.
I'm sorry. I'll sneak a preach. I will sneak a preach. Listen, you give me a platform, I'll sneak a preach.
Hallelujah. With that, thank you all so much. Victor, once again, thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course, until next time, beautiful people, remember, representation matters.